When did your dad die?
My dad died when I was 14. No one spoke at my dad's funeral, and I was so embarrassed for him that I got up and spoke.
What'd you say?
I lied. I was like, my dad was such a great dad. He wasn't. The lesson I learned was watching my sister forgive him. For me at 14, it was very powerful to watch that. Whenever I would meet someone from New York whose dad died in 9/11, I was always like jealous. I was always like, that's so fucking cool.
Thank you for coming here.
Yeah.
I guess we're talking about death in some capacity.
Yes.
You know, I forgot. I don't know how long. It was one of your older sets. I could be completely butchering this, but you mentioned someone in your family was talking about death, and you thought they were a lunatic because they were so comfortable talking about
grandma.
death. It was your grandma.
Yeah, it was my grandma. It was when she was like old, like when I started noticing how old she got. This was like when she was in like her mid 80s, early 90s. She just really was like, she was talking about it like it was a doctor's appointment that was coming up. She was just like, yeah. She wasn't like, I don't think scared is the right word. She just wasn't like, it wasn't a priority. She was just kind of like, everyone around her was dying, and she was like, whatever.
Wait, what wasn't a priority? The idea of dying?
Yeah, like I think young people are like, oh my God, it's going to kill us and we're going to die and everything's going to end. And like all of her friends were dying, and she was just kind of like, yeah. Then it got to the point where she was kind of like talking shit about how people were in their 90s versus her.
Well, she's
like,
healthy and shit.
She's like, I'm doing way better than him. I'm like 6 years older than him, and I'm like, I can still live by myself. And you're like, damn, you're talking that shit, Nana.
Yeah, but that's the place to be. I feel like that's the ideal place. Yeah, I don't want to hide your face, by the way. Pull that
until it's too late. It's good until it's too late. Like it's fun that she's talking shit until it gets to the point where you're like, God heard you. This thing keep fucking popping up. This is just where it is.
Turns out
the parking is fucking ridiculous here. This is just how it's going to be.
We're just going to have a little bit of a mic in your face. But
sorry, folks. Hold up a fucking picture over the video if this angle bothers you.
Turn sideways. Try turning it sideways.
Then it feels like a fucking 30s
radio.
There we go.
Yeah, we got some face back.
All right.
We're doing a little bit better.
Yeah,
I want people to recognize who I'm talking
without
to.
being filmed.
Yeah.
Why would you just do audio only? Yeah,
Anyway.
Yeah, that was my grandma I was talking about.
Yeah, but you know, it was interesting to me because you've been through some shit when you were most of the big loss that you've gone through that we're going to get into when you were young, no?
Yeah, I was a teenager.
And were you not comfortable talking about it, or was it just part of it? Was it just for the bit's sake?
What do you mean comfortable talking about it?
Like death. Because it seemed like is it more that she was so chill talking about it?
Yeah, it was just she was cold about it. Like,
okay, that's different.
Like,
that's different.
It wasn't like she was warm. It was just like, she was just like, yeah, I'm going to die. And you're like, fuck. That's why I said, I think in the bit, I compared her to like being like a gang member. Because she really had given like that kind of energy of like, I don't give a fuck. And you're like, oh.
Well, I guess when you get to that age, you're so close. So, I mean, what is there to fear? You've been through everything.
Yeah, and you're watching your friends do it. It's just kind of like...
My buddy would always say that. He's like, the way he looks at it, he's like, my brother did it. He said to me, your dad did it. Everyone else before me did it. He's like, I could fucking do this.
Yeah, I mean, it's the only thing that absolutely happens. It's the only thing that 100% happens to people that live is they die.
And we're the ones that are left over with the shit, to be honest.
Yeah, there was like that great Keanu Reeves clip. I think it was on Colbert where he was like, he's like, what would you say to anybody? He's like, I don't know what happens when you die. I just know the people you left behind really miss you. And you're like, whoa.
Right? They're so simple and profound. I remember that clip.
What a fucking perfect sentence.
Well, what about that with you? So what was your first exposure with it? It was your father? Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, my mom's parents died when I was little, when I was like 5. But I wasn't really close to my grandparents on my mom's side. I was young. I was like 5 or 6, so I didn't really get a chance to bond with them. I mean, obviously I loved them. They're my grandparents, but I didn't really like know them. But yeah, the first big loss I had was probably my dog when I was 8. My dog Izzy died when I was like 8 or 9 years old, and I remember that being like the first instance of experiencing life is different when something dies. Like that, like I come home and my dog's not there, or like I wake up and or I go to let my dog out, my dog's not there. And it was like, for me at 8 years old, like the real moment of like, oh fuck, this sucks. And like I really missed him. He was a good dog. He was my dad and mom's dog from when they like got married. So he wasn't really my dog. I just loved him because he was a big fat yellow lab. I just loved Izzy. And then we got my dog, Montana, like, maybe a month or two after Izzy died. So that was like my first experience of like, oh, this sucks. But then I got a puppy. So that was sick. And then when that dog died, it was really hard because that was my like buddy from when I was 9. He was 13 when I died. So he was like 12 or 13. Mm-hmm. He died when I was like 21. And that was like, oh, watching him get old and then just knowing he was going to die.
Well, especially that you're older and you understand it. Especially that first one at 8.
Yeah.
You know, it felt replaceable a little bit when you got a dog right after.
This guy, you're like, dude, I fucking loved that dog.
Plus, dogs you cannot talk to them like you are humans, so they can't really be an asshole.
Yeah,
so
they're
there's
just
nothing
perfect.
to not like about them.
They're just perfect. He was just a perfect fat boy. He's just the best. Montana was, I have a dog now and like, I have to amend my fiance when she's like, you're the greatest dog ever. You're like, only second to Montana. And she didn't know my dog. So she's like, well, I love Myrtle. And you're like, and Myrtle is the best.
The turtle
dog living. Living. Best dog dead. Montana's in the easy, at least in the conversation.
This is like a sports analogy at this point.
It's like Kobe versus Jordan. And you go, I was alive for Jordan. Mm-hmm. I watched Jordan. It really is. That's exactly what it feels like. You're like, LeBron is incredible. Myrtle's like LeBron. You're like, lived up to the hype, did better than anything, but you go, Montana changed the game.
That couldn't be more perfect because the name Myrtle, for some reason, oddly fits LeBron James.
It's Myrtle, dude.
It's fucking
Big
Myrtle.
Big fucking Myrtle.
That's the name of my turtle that died. Actually, my turtle didn't die. My mom got rid of it, so I don't know what happened to that turtle.
Could be still living. Turtles live for a long time.
My mom's an Italian mother. I don't know, she probably took care of it.
You think she fucking put a hit on it?
I don't know.
Let's just say.
Well, what's the prey of a turtle?
It sleeps with the fishes. And you go, yeah, turtles sleep with fishes all the time. Well, not in the literal, God damn it, this analogy really backfired on me.
That should be a good Pixar, Italian mafia of turtles and sleeping with the fishes.
He's like, no, we come here under this rock. But yeah, that was like the first, Izzy dying was like the first amuse-bouche of death. It was the first taste of death.
When did your dad die?
My dad died when I was 14.
Okay.
So I was a freshman in high school. And he got sick right after the summer, right when I started my freshman year. My grandma called my mom and was like, your dad's sick. Or she told, Gary's sick. And then kind of was like, without saying it, was kind of like, he ain't coming back from this one. So my sister and I went out and saw him. My sister was 12 years older. She's my half sister. We went out and saw him. She was 12 years older and she had no contact with him. He abandoned her too. He abandoned both of us, different families. I don't know. Guy had a pattern. But my sister forgave him, which I was like blown away by. Because I think I was closer to him because I was younger and he had stuck around a little bit longer than he had for my sister. Mm-hmm. So and also, you've lost your dad, but a boy losing his dad is like, that's the same sex parent losing that parent. You're kind of like, there's a void that opens up where you go like, fuck.
Yeah. I heard someone put it as like my first male leader in a weird way.
Yeah. Even
though, I don't know, I was a big sports fan. So those are weird leaders in myself, but I never thought of it that way. It was just like the first male figure in your life.
Well, he's your dad.
He's your fucking dad.
She's like how you're supposed to learn everything.
But especially at 14, I was 12, so we were similar ages.
Yeah, you're like going through puberty. You're like becoming a person.
And then you never get the chance to be a man with your father. Yeah,
that was my biggest problem. And that's something that I've worked on in therapy for years was that my father never, he was a dad in name alone. He was like, we never had like a father-son moment. If there was, it was very like surface level, very like, here's how you throw a spiral. It was never like, be a good man and be good to there's never any, he never... See, I was laughing with this about my therapist. I just read The Shining.
Read it, nice.
Yeah, and then immediately followed it by reading Dr. Sleep, which is the sequel to The Shining. The underlying story of The Shining is the special relationship between Jack and Danny Torrance, because Jack obviously goes crazy, but he loves his son, and Stephen King emphasizes that a lot. Loves his son, but he goes crazy. The hotel wants Danny. Jack goes crazy, but at the very last moment kind of gives himself instead of giving his son. He does this selfless act, and we were in therapy, and I was like, damn, Jack Torrance was a better dad than my dad, which is crazy to think the bad guy from The Shining was a better father than my dad. But he was like, my dad never sacrificed anything for me. My dad never was there for me, never called me on my birthday, would forget birthdays, would forget Christmases, was just like a very, very fun, very funny, very likable guy, but horrible father. And so when he dies, and people that are listening to this that have lost people that have complicated relationships with the people they've lost, it's a very normal thing to be like upset that that's how it ends. It's like if a movie ended at the end of Act 2, when everything's supposed to resolve in Act 3, and it just ends in Act 2, and you go like, what the fuck? What the fuck? Like, as a sports fan, the equivalent I gave it is, it's the fourth quarter, your team's gonna mount a comeback, but the game is over. They just end the game, and they go, no more game. And you go, no, we were still gonna come back. And they go, no, game's over, you lost.
Yeah, I mean, how many bad three quarters have you seen in those times of fourth quarter comebacks who your dad never got the chance to even try to redeem?
Yeah, but who's to say he fucking would have?
Whether he would have, we don't know. If it's at the comeback, you don't know they're gonna come back.
Yeah, I think the lesson I learned was watching my sister forgive him. That was very, like, for me at 14, it was very powerful to watch that. Because I knew how much mixed feelings she had about him. She really fucking hated him because he was a piece of shit. You know, he left her when she was 4, saw her again when she was 16, and then not again until she was 28, and he died.
What was his deal? What was he
was just an alcoholic. Yeah. Or she was 26 when he died. He was just an alcoholic. He was just a selfish alcoholic. And he was, you know, I think the boomer generation has a really hard time with accountability. I think they have a very difficult time of going like, I fucked up. That's my bad. Also, therapy was like a very bad thing for them. Like if you were in therapy, to them, you were like mentally insane. And I think, dude, straight up just in my dad's family, there was not a lot of accountability. I mean, I've seen it in multiple members of that family, which has influenced me to take a hold of my accountability and know when I'm wrong.
Well, it's good you took that approach, because sometimes it's like breaking the generational cycle.
Right. Yeah, me and my cousin Lisa have really worked on breaking the cycle of my father's family, because it was very like destroy and move on and don't really apologize for it. And then there was like, you know, there were people in my family that I felt like really could have stepped up after my dad died, and they didn't. And I kind of just quietly resented them. And then finally in the last couple of years, I've kind of just been like, hey, you're not my family anymore. If you weren't there for me then, you know, it's interesting because you get like on a TV show or you get a little popular, and all of a sudden these people start reaching out that you're like, I don't know who you are. This one woman on Instagram was like, I'm your cousin. And I'm like, no, I know all my cousins. And she was like, well, my grandma was married to your grandpa. And you go, you're not even like a step cousin. Yeah, like and then there'd be, and I was polite at first, and then finally I was like, I'm being polite to someone I don't need to be polite to. I was kind of like, yo, lady, I don't know you. And she'd be like, well, that's kind of messed up. And you're like, no, it's not. I don't fucking know you.
Yeah, there is. You know, I have friends that I consider family for a reason, because there's a level of earning each other's respect. And there's an idea behind family that, you know, based on blood ties, either has to be this or has to be that.
Yeah, which you know, they always say you can't pick your family, but you sure as fuck can. Yeah. You can tell family to fuck off. Sure. You know, my cousin Lisa and I, we didn't speak for years. We didn't speak since, I was probably like 9 years old, because my dad's family was really bad to her. Really, really bad to her. And I used to go visit my grandmother all the time, and she would be like, make me feel bad for not visiting her enough. And then she would bring up my cousin, and I'd be like, I don't even know if you talked to her. But she would do it in a way of like, well, Lisa would come out, but she has this. So I just reached out to her, and I was like, hey, I'm your cousin, on Facebook. And then Lisa and her daughter came out to a show of mine in Ohio, and then we became very close. And the discussion became like, this family sucks. And she was like, oh yeah. She was like, I thought it was great for you. And you're like, no. It was horrible for me. And she was like, great. And then I love her so much. Like what it's done for me to have a person that's my aunt who I was very close to's daughter, but they weren't close. To have that connection now, you know, her kids, she's got 4 kids, and I was talking to her son and he's in high school and he's like, I'm doing a project, but I want to do it about my grandma, but can I ask you about her? Because I lived with her in Alaska and stuff. I was like, oh yeah, dude, she was crazy interesting. But him and his mom and her had a horrible relationship. So I was like, you can call me about it because I can give you info that I have. But it was just nice. It's nice to like make your own pathways to family and be like, I'm not going to let this historically bad shit get in the way of me having a connection to someone that's my blood and someone that I truly think is a great fucking person.
Yeah, and it's amazing that again you took that path and you give me examples of going a different direction that is breaking a generational cycle. But I wonder why are you choosing that? Like, I'm happy you are, but like it's interesting that people in the past haven't. Like, what continued that?
I watched my father drink himself to death, and my family's, especially my dad's side, are all alcoholics. I mean, that gene is, if you didn't think it was genetic, you could look at my dad's family and be like, that's 100% genetic. And, you know, there I was, 26 years old, 27, drinking fucking hard, partying hard, but doing comedy and like having fun. And my therapist was like, yeah, you're just like your dad. And I was like,
oh, shit.
No, I'm not. And he's like, well, you're doing the same exact shit. And then it becomes like, for multiple reasons, you go like, I think I'm done drinking alcohol. And then you look back and you go, oh, that helped me break. That breaking of the cycle led to me breaking like 8 to 10 things.
Yeah, there's a start in that one thing. But I do want to ask you, because your story, besides just obviously being a fan of your work, like that your story in particular of having a tumultuous relationship with your dad, because that's an important topic of losing someone that you didn't have because I always think of a eulogy. Every time I see a eulogy, I'm like, why? Every eulogy is always good, but what about the shitty eulogy of someone who wasn't good in your life?
No one spoke at my dad's funeral, and I was so embarrassed for him that I got up and spoke, and
What'd you say?
Lied. Fucking lied. I was like, my dad was such a great dad. He wasn't. I was just trying to make him, in wrestling terms, I was trying to put him over.
Yeah.
This guy's his own funeral and no one wants to get up and talk.
Damn.
He was funny. He was funny as fuck. And he was a very fun guy to hang out with. He was a horrible father.
Okay. So when you go to his funeral and no one's willing to talk, does that do anything to you to make you realize, okay, so it wasn't just his relationship to me?
Oh no, I idolized him. Until I was in my late 20s. It took therapy and it took like a lot of like, I was gaslit. I mean, that's the term they use now, but I was like gaslit by him all the time, dude. Used to call me, be like, I'm gonna come see your football games. I'm gonna come out and visit you. Or would do a thing of like, I sent you a birthday card, it got lost in the mail. And when you're a 9-year-old, 10-year-old boy, you're going like, well, yeah, you sent me a card. You're not going like, oh, because my mom is over in one ear going like, your dad's drunk, your dad's a liar, and you're like, shut up. He fucking rules. Right. What I learned about this, the big lesson I learned about this was that I don't think a lot of people know this is, when you have a parent that abandons you, you tend to take it out on the parent that stayed. You tend to be a dickhead to the parent that's there, and they're catching heat subconsciously from the parent that left. When I was a teenager, I was a fucking dickhead to my mom. And then as in my 30s and 40s, I realized like, oh, my mom was there. My mom was like showing up, being a parent, being compassionate. I'm the product of my mom. I'm not the product of my dad. I have my father's sense of humor. I like have the likability of my father, but any part of me is built by my mom.
Yeah, I hear that. Now look, so much for me personally. I uncovered, which I think is what you're saying. I uncovered so much shit down the line.
Oh yeah,
it's like it almost honestly all came down the line. Sometimes I don't even remember how I felt as a kid. Like there's momentary things I feel, but there's a lot I forget. But I do remember, and this is a different scenario because for whatever reason, you know, I had a good relationship with my dad.
Yeah.
And
which almost makes losing him more painful.
yes, it's different. It's just different. It's not painful. It's not.
Like you're right.
Different.
It's the difference of like breaking your arm versus breaking your leg. You're like, it's still a broken fucking bone.
Yeah, at least I can walk, but I can't pick. You know, it's like it's tomato fucking tomato. But so I'm not even trying to go in that direction. It was just, it made me feel like more of an asshole for when I would get frustrated and be a dick with my mom. Now I'm very close to my mom, but now looking back, I feel like such an asshole because I was just snappy and I wasn't too much of a troublemaker, but the dynamic, you know, I was a pain in the ass, I think.
Did you try to act like everything was okay after it happened?
No, I don't think, you know, I turned out what, you know what I've realized again down the line what I think helped me was, granted my dad died on 9/11, so I had footage of my dad dying more or less, and it wouldn't see him. And
oh yeah, that's crazy.
I wasn't peeking through the window, so I couldn't see him.
I forgot you told me that your dad died in 9/11.
Which one is it?
It's on 9/11, but he died because of a terrorist attack.
Yeah, I mean, so they say. Yeah, that's what I've seen. What about you?
I mean, fuck, dude, my dad died because he chose to party.
That's why that bit when I commented on your post, that's what cracked me up because you were talking about. You brought up 9/11, ironically, in the bit, right?
I have a couple friends that have had dads that died in 9/11. Famously, Pete Davidson, who was a buddy of mine back in the day. And a couple other people that I've known from living in New York who had fathers that either worked at the World Trade Center, worked for the FDNY. Some that worked for that were like EMTs died.
But you're not from New York, right?
No,
from
I'm from Colorado.
Sorry.
But my dad lived in San Francisco. My dad and his whole family's from the Bay.
That's way more people that you'd know than most people on the West Coast. West Coast, I'm like, oh, you died not? I'm like a leprechaun.
Yeah, I just know because I live in New York and I've been in New York for 2 decades. But whenever I would meet someone from New York whose dad died in 9/11, I was always like jealous. I was always like, that's so fucking cool. There's a reason why people used to lie when their parents would die and they would say he was a fighter pilot or he would like died in war. Because there's this feeling of like, dude, you have a historical moment for your grief.
Yes.
You go like 9/11. Is your dad on the monument?
Yeah, he's there.
Yeah, you can like go rub his name.
Yeah,
I go to an abandoned bowling alley bar, and I'm like, that's my dad's Freedom Tower. You know what I mean? You're just like, oh, this is just like this is a rundown. It's like, I think nothing's there anymore in Lakeport in that bowling alley, but you're just like, oh, this is where my dad literally killed himself drinking alcohol. He had Hep C and it turned into cirrhosis.
When you say killed himself, he died due to it, right? Okay, he didn't kill himself.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't put a gun in it. He wasn't that courageous.
Nevertheless,
he just had a blood disease and drank until it killed him.
But that's the way. So you asked me if I pretended if it was okay. I don't think so because what I do remember, I used to watch, even later in my life, I used to watch the footage because I had that over and over again, like a madman, looking for new angles, trying to see if I was listening, watching.
What did you think of like Loose Change?
I haven't seen it in so long, but it's made me.
Are you in?
I think something's not straight ahead, you know?
Yeah. Oh well, yeah. I mean, Tower 7 falling alone. But that guy's voiceover really kills it for me. Where he's like, "A plane hit the tower."
Imagine it was yours. Yours would be the exact opposite.
Oh my god! You get James Earl Jones on that shit. Everyone thinks 9/11's a different voiceover. Everyone's on board with 9/11 being an inside job.
That's true.
That is a plane. If Sam Elliott would have been like, on a very clear day. Flight 93 was going down in the field while
we should
two
test
other
that
ones.
out. We should put a new voiceover on Loose Change and see if it catches headline.
Give Sam Elliott one last gig.
But it is a little strange. Like I understand what you're saying about having that but that was a big premise why I have this podcast because I felt guilty that I got that acknowledgement because everyone knows when my dad died. So
really?
So I get those text messages and I realized what about
like people are reminded.
Everyone
do you still get texts
every year? It's dimmed down. I'm kind of happy about that it's been less and less. But I'm also I can't be not happy that I'm getting the acknowledgement. Yeah. But it's also people remember it. So part of this podcast again is talking to people that are not going to know the date your dad died.
Yeah, no one's texting me on December 12th.
You're dropping flowers at the bowling alley.
Yeah, no one's going like, here's pouring out a Bacardi and Coke for Gary. They're just like, hey, your dad died.
Okay, but you also tapped into that could make it worse. I'm not necessarily agreeing or not agreeing with that, but you are missing out on that fourth quarter just the same, just in a different angle. Like what could have been. Maybe
losing a parent for anyone is, especially under the age of 18, losing a parent is so, it's part of your identity. It's just like you lose a limb. You just like lose a limb. That's the only way I can tell you. It's like your fucking hand gets cut off and you're just like emotionally, physically you're fine, but you're just kind of like,
we think physically we're fine, but that shit shows up too in ways that we probably don't even realize.
I mean, I know I love substances because of it.
What kind?
I just like to get fucked up. Yeah. Like it was the year anniversary of my dad's death where I just started getting fucked up every day.
So you're 15 at this point.
Yeah. And I'm getting fucking high and drunk.
So is that part of you?
As much as I can.
Is that part of you saying, if I can use it, I gotta fix that camera, whatever. Is that part of you saying that you pretended as if nothing happened? Or
yeah, that was what I did. That's why I asked you that. My dad died and they were like, you could take a week off school. And I took a day and I was like, this feels fucked up. I want to go to school. And then I went to school and then it was like kind of weird because it had spread around and people were like, I heard your dad died.
Yes.
And you're kind of like.
You're that guy.
You're like, yeah, I guess. And then it's kind of worse, but you also don't want to go home because if you're at home, you're just left with your thoughts. And there wasn't really like.
We can't avoid it in either direction.
Yeah, but I didn't live with my dad. My dad wasn't even in Colorado. So there was this weird thing of like, you're almost like thinking about like, oh, it's happening in California and I'm not there. You almost feel like a bad son. There's just like stuff we never had, we did a memorial service. He was cremated, but I never got to spread the ashes. My grandmother did that. And there was just stuff where I was kind of like, I just felt very, just out of place in every kind of aspect of my life. I didn't know who I was. I hated my mom's boyfriend. My mom's boyfriend was friends with my dad.
Oh.
And like was former best friends with my dad. Like he was my godfather and he just really was not compassionate or empathetic at all about it. Cause my mom and my mom's boyfriend and her would get fucking drunk and just be like, fuck Gary, he sucks, he's a fucking loser. And I still loved the dude. I loved the dude until he was dead. I really was hoping there was going to be a turnaround. But after he died, my mom got very respectful. My mom was very mindful about the fact that like, I'm not going to shit talk this guy. But her boyfriend didn't give a fuck. He was just kind of like, he gave me like a real quick, like, sorry, dad died. And you're like, well, I need a lot more than that.
Yeah.
But my sister was there for me. And my sister was really, really instrumental in helping me deal with the death. My dad would call me from her work, and just be like, how you doing? What's going on? We'd talk about it. She was never against or off-putting about me wanting to talk about it.
That's huge.
If I could call, she was 12 years older. She was an adult. So I could call her and just be like, I'm thinking about dad today. Or she'd be like, that's okay. That's okay. And then, she and I had a great conversation just about death in general when she was visiting. My mom loved my sister, even though it was her stepdaughter, ex-stepdaughter. My mom and my sister really got along, and my mom always got along with my sister's mom. Mm-hmm. So there was no weirdness. But my sister was a full-grown woman, and she would just come out and hang. She liked me. We like had a great, she had another half brother that she grew up with, Dawn, who's awesome, but she liked coming to Colorado and hanging out with me. And it was like this moment of like, kind of like what I was talking about with my cousin Lisa. There was this moment of like choosing a family member that gets you, that you understand and that understands you. And that was very, very important to me when I was 14 and 15. It was just very important that I had like a cool older sister that had good taste in music, that was funny, that I could call and just be like, this sucks. And she'd be like, it does suck. And I'm feeling it too. And you're good, you're good. Just, so.
So it was more of just validating everything you felt.
100%.
And you didn't have anyone else.
Yeah. And she was very, very, my grandmother and my aunt really tried to act like my dad was this like, they pontificated him. They made it, or they like, what's it called when they make someone a pope?
Martyr?
Yeah. Well, they kind of like, they turned him into a saint. They really were like, oh, Gary was so good. And you're kind of like, I don't think he was. And it took me until my grandmother was like, I mean, I'm not joking, probably like less than 5 years ago, I was at my grandma's and she was like, your dad was such a good dad. And I was like, no, he wasn't. And she was like, no, he wasn't. I was like, no, he wasn't. He abandoned Michelle. He abandoned me. He was a really bad dad. And she was like, yeah. And that felt so good to have her finally go like, yeah, he did suck. He did.
Yeah, what is that? Why do you think people got it? Why do we have to?
Well, she didn't want it.
Was it for you?
I mean, if I'm going to follow what I've worked on in therapy, it's that there was zero accountability in my family. That started with my grandmother. My grandmother didn't want, because if he's a bad father, that falls on her for like, well, why aren't you on your son to call his kids, to be in his kid's life? And what they would do is they would always go, you know, when I would be like, why did dad leave Michelle? And you'd be like, oh, well, Michelle's mom wouldn't let him see her, you know, and then it would be like, well, why wasn't dad around for me? Well, your mom wouldn't let us see you. And it's like, well, technically dad didn't pay child support and my mom was completely by herself. Mm-hmm. So there's a reason she wasn't like, yeah, fucking, she's like, give me my money to help with this kid.
For real.
So there was a moment when my grandmother finally was like, yeah, he wasn't a good dad. And you're like, all right, thanks. Now we can fucking, at least there's honesty.
Yeah. Was a lot of your process that maybe you're still going through, you tell me, was it unraveling more the living relationship than his non-existence at this point?
What do you mean?
So it was a lot of things you're talking about, the accountability. It seemed like the way things were when he was alive, like the dynamic of your relationship with your father. Does it feel like you were working that out more than the fact he's gone?
Yes. Yeah, that's very insightful. I don't think anyone's ever brought that up to me before, but yeah, I think I was like going through, because what you don't realize is a lot of your relationships as an adult are based on the relationships you had as a child. Yeah. And so what I noticed was, you know, first 15 years of my comedy career, I really just wanted to be liked. I wanted people to like me. I wanted people to accept me. And then through therapy and quitting drinking, I realized it was like, oh, this is all my dad. I wanted my dad to like me. I wanted my dad to be there. I wanted his approval. You know, I put him up on this pedestal when I was a boy because I loved him so much. He was so easy to love, super funny, super charming, super like would buy me toys and shit when I would see him in San Francisco, take me to 49er games. And it was like, oh, this guy fucking rules. And then it was like, but then I never saw him after. I wouldn't visit him. It would be like getting love bombed. Like I would hang out with him and he'd be like, you're my boy. I love you. You're so special to me. And then it would go 18 months without talking. And you're like, well, if I'm that special. And it took my therapist going like, no, a good dad would have fought to stay in your life. Like there are good dads who go through divorces. You know what I mean?
That was your normal. This was your normal, and no one ever told you that, oh, this is the way it, quote, it's a dangerous word saying should be, but yeah, your ideal father, you think, as I know it, would do that. I didn't have that experience. So I can't. I
know people whose dads went through horrific divorces with their mom and were there.
Yeah.
Like, oh, fuck it, I'll deal with this bitch. I got to see my kid. And there never once was a moment where my dad was like, I have to fight to see my son. He never fought. And that psychologically makes you as the kid believe like, well, I'm not worth fighting for. I'm not worth showing up for. People don't need, I would be great to people and they would do nothing back. And I'd go, well, that's a normal relationship. Yeah. And it took my therapist going, no. You need like my fiance was the first person I ever was with where I asked my therapist, I was like, what is this? Why do I feel like this? And he's like, well, you have an emotional base. She sees you. She understands you. She's giving you what you're giving her. This is what a relationship is. And you're like, this is awesome. And they're like, yeah, she sees you and she understands you and she loves you. And there is no like, I've got to do something for her to like me.
It's unconditional.
It's just unconditional. And so you go like, oh, this is love. Like, this is what love. And my mom loves me. I know my mom loves me. That's why I'm not murdering hookers. It's like, my mom loves me. My mom was a very good mom. My mom no parent does it perfect, but my mom did a fucking bang up job with all things considered. Mm-hmm. She did a good job of going like, you're tough. You're going to get through this. I love you. I always knew my mom loved me. I always knew my mom loved and supported me. But it's every relationship has issues. So there's different issues for everything. But with my dad, the issues were, I stopped smoking weed for from that day I got high, I didn't stop until I was 40, Like I just got high every day.
Oh, she recently stopped?
And then I'm 40, I'm about to be 42, but last year I quit for like 3 months, maybe 3.5 months, because my therapist was like, there's a bunch of stuff that you have buried under getting fucked up. And when I stopped getting fucked up, we literally dealt with the issue of your father rejected you. Your father did not want to be your dad. And like, I couldn't say that sentence for the first 2 weeks that we talked about in therapy. I couldn't come up with the word reject. I'd go, my father left me. My father didn't care. And then I'd be like, oh, he rejected me because he didn't fight to be in my life. He didn't fight to call me or, But honestly, dude, like me, it shows you the reservoir of anger I have, because when you finally realize that your parent didn't try, what other emotion can you have but anger?
Yeah, it sucks.
You're like, dude, that's your fucking kid. It's your fucking kid. Nothing makes me angrier than deadbeat parents. Mm-hmm. It's like, dude, because I know what's going to happen emotionally to those kids. They're gonna... we always mock about strippers or porn stars. We're like, oh, well, you got daddy issues. You know how many men have daddy issues? Do you know how much fucked up shit has happened because men specifically have fucking daddy issues and they don't deal with it and they just shove it down and they go, made me tough. I'm a man. It's like, no, dude, you are broken. There are leaks in your hose. Fix it. But 100%. No one talks about it like that shit.
No, it's one-sided. That specifically has always been one-sided.
It's very one-sided. Like, oh, she's a slut. I love when women have daddy issues. It's like, well, when men have daddy issues, motherfuckers get clipped. They get shot. They get fucking killed. Or there's just, like, obviously this is an issue that I have a lot of emotion with. But as I've gotten older, realizing truly what abandonment meant made me furious at my father.
And what does it mean to you?
It's like, you fucking pussy, step up. Mm-hmm. Like, just step up. And listen, there are some women out there that have daddy issues that are real fucking nightmares for people with kids. I'm not saying this is all black and white. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I also, to talk about the radio fans, I kind of do understand that maybe they did feel a little abandoned. And as someone that's dealt with that, like, to those that did feel that way, I know I was joking and calling him a pussy, but like, I also kind of understand, like, it's a shitty feeling.
It's a shitty feeling, but that's you're talking about your experiences, real life. This is business and your life. It's like, it's not a comparison, but I get how you're comparing it at the same time.
It is like, man, it's an anger that one of my close friends, Louis J. Gomez, I love him to death, the Puerto Rican rattlesnake. He would always be like, you're a psycho and no one knows it. And I think he wasn't wrong. I think what it is was I had a lot of fucking anger that I buried because I wanted in my mind my relationship to be with my father to be this like, dad loved me and it just didn't work out. Mm-hmm. And he just that disease of alcoholism got him. It's like, fuck the excuses. This guy didn't call. He didn't show. He promised, overpromised, underdelivered. Yeah, you're going to be mad.
Yeah, you're just a kid.
You're a kid.
Like you didn't do anything, and then all of a sudden you feel like you're not loved, and why wasn't he there for me?
And I also loved my dad. I loved my dad.
That's the unique part too.
I fucking wanted to hang out with that guy because he was so funny, so fun to hang out with.
So then how do you resolve that? Like, what is it? I know that a lot of this is accountability, some of the things you mentioned, but for that feeling that's still in there, what do you think has to be left out of the tank, if anything, or it just sticks with you? Maybe it just fucking sticks with you.
I think it's just learn how to deal with it. I think it's like the way that, like talking about losing a limb, there's people that live lives missing arms and missing legs because of accidents, and they just go on and they learn how to live with it, and they learn how to I don't think I'm like ever going to be 100%, but I feel like,
Well, the fact that he's dead makes it so completely, because then you're resolving it against the wall or a mirror almost, as opposed to having that opportunity to resolve with the source.
I mean, I'd go as far as me and Katie have talked about the fact that it's probably better that he's dead because of how his personality was, that he probably would have stayed out of my life until I started making some money, and then he would have showed back up.
And then nothing would get resolved.
And then I would have hated him. Then I would have truly hated him.
Isn't that the weird part, like the good from death sometimes?
Yeah. No one talks about that, but there is. There's a finality to it.
In that case, it's like I found good from my dad's death, but in this weird, I found so much good from that. But the good aspect from your angle is unique, of saying if he was still around, maybe never coming back in the fourth quarter and just continuing the cycle. Who the hell knows what your life would be like?
Could be Bobby Boucher's dad showing up at your wedding, being like, "I'm not Tiger Woods' daddy. And me and you gonna make so much money." And then my mom would just lay him out like Terry Tate, office linebacker. It was like, there is a moment where you're like, man.
It's real, man. It sucks.
It sucks. It sucks. But I think that's like, it's just loss. It's just losing people.
It just sucks. But it's like, at the same time, this is how it goes. This is what it is. I don't know what to say besides, it's just until it happens to you. Usually, sometimes the headline you hear, so that sucked, that's sad. But once it happens to you, and you learned at a young age, I learned at a young age. Oh, this is what life is.
Yeah.
Not always in a shitty, cynical way, though. It's just this is what we get through.
And then sometimes it goes from bad to worse. Sometimes you go like, oh, this sucks. And then you're like, oh, it can get so much worse.
Well, what was the worst for you? You lose your sister?
Yeah, so my dad died December 12th, 1997. Michelle was there for me a lot. Really helped me out. And then like, I think I want to say August or September of 1999, my sister was visiting me. It was for her birthday. It was after her birthday was August 21st. It was like after her birthday. She was going to a music festival in Colorado Springs, and she flew out to Colorado, stayed at my mom's house. She's packing the night before she left, and we talked about Dad dying. I was like, Michelle, I remember being like 13 and being like, Dad's not going to make it to my high school graduation. And it's like, it's crazy. He didn't. And she was like, yeah, I'll be there. And I was like, I know. And, she had this very long talk about like, she was very wise. And she was like, this is what life is. People die. And you just kind of, you go through life and you lose people. But, their memories really keep you alive. Your memories help you keep them alive. And I had to go to school the next day. It was like a weekday. So I went to school the next day, and I came home from football practice, and my sister had let me written me a letter that was like, I love you. I'm very proud of like who you're becoming. You're like a good man. You're becoming a good man. You're like, you have good in your heart, and you're like, please follow that. I'm just really proud to be your sister. It was a fucking beautiful letter. And, then she went back to LA. She lived in Riverside, and she like came back here, and I came home from my friend's house, and my mom was like, I need to talk to you. And when my mom says that, we had been through it with my dad. So when she said it to me, I was like, oh, Nana died. And she was like, no. And then I was like, did Aunt Karen die? And my mom got emotional, and she was like, Michelle was killed in a car accident on Interstate 10. And it was just like, I don't think I've ever came back from that moment. That moment where it like literally feels like the floor gives out.
And how old are you right at this moment?
I was 16.
So this is 2 years after your dad-ish? Less than 2 years?
Less than 2 years. Yeah, it was like just under 2 years. It's probably like, I want to say like 22 months after my dad died. And it was just like, and then it becomes, you just become like numb in a way where you go like, oh, anything good will result in bad.
It's another paradigm.
You just go like, anything that I love will be taken away from me. So then it becomes intimacy issues, hypochondria, anger, fear. More than anger, it was fear. It was just fear that anytime I loved somebody, anytime I had a moment with somebody that was good, that was like a good moment, I'd be like, oh, well, they're going to die. Or like, I'm going to die. And I mean, I still think that way. I still, you know, I hold my dog on the couch and I go like, am I going to die or is she going to die? Like, who's going to, you know, or
Someone's
like,
going.
or my fiance, like I have a real hard time leaving her because I go like, I don't want to die and I don't want her to die. So it's just like this feeling that haunts you when, you know, because it's like I got hit by my dad and I wasn't even up yet. And then it was like a worse punch with Michelle. And you're just like, fuck. And then I find out that my Aunt Karen has liver cancer because she was taking care of my dad and his hepatitis C. She was a nurse and he like threw up blood and it got in her eye. So she got hepatitis C, but didn't know it until it turned into liver cancer. And you're just like, oh. So it's like from 14 until my aunt died in 2007. So I was 24. It just from 14 to 24, it was like, cool. So just like everybody's dying. So just like anytime, because I was close to my Aunt Karen, you know, I was very close to her. She really stepped up. She was the only family member that stepped up after my father died. She really like called me. She was very funny, just like him. She was very, very funny. In fact, she was the first person that confidently told me I could do stand-up comedy when I asked her.
Oh, yeah.
When I was like, I think I could. I lived with her in Alaska for 4 months in between my freshman and sophomore year of college and worked at the cannery in Alaska and just had like a very great lifetime experience and got to have like a lot of deep conversations because she knew she was dying. You know, she didn't die for another 5 years, but she knew she was dying and we got to have like a lot of like, but again, I wasn't there mentally to hold my father accountable. So it was all just like, your dad was so funny. She was just telling me great stories about my dad. And there never was any like, why didn't you tell him to call me? In fact, my Aunt Karen was the reason I saw my dad the last time before he died. When I was 12 years old, my aunt bought me a plane ticket to surprise my dad out in California. And that was when shit was like not good. Like he wasn't sick, but he was like really hanging out with fucking white trash.
Wait, so just for context, the last time you saw him was 12. So when he died, when you were 14.
I saw him one last time when I was 14.
Okay. Just curious.
I flew out for Thanksgiving of 97 and he was very sick. And if you've ever seen anybody in the late stages of cirrhosis, it's fucking brutal. They do not look like themselves. They look about 90 years old. They have an inflated stomach. They're jaundice. You can see, you know, I could see like the peak of my father's skull.
Dude, that's a whole nother traumatic event that we haven't tapped into. Seeing that shit as a kid?
I walked into my grandma's house because my sister was like, basically what happened is my grandma called my mom and my grandma was like, Gary's like gonna die. And my mom was like, listen, here's the deal. I don't have money, so I can send you to see your father one last time, or I can send you to his funeral. And I was like, oh, I want to see him one last time. That might have been a mistake because I told Michelle that and Michelle was like, I'm going to go with you, which surprised the fuck out of me because there wasn't any idea that she was going to forgive him.
So that when she said that to you, that was before you realized she forgave him?
Yeah. Oh, I watched. That was the beginning of watching her forgive him.
You saw her like with him doing it?
I saw her talk to him. I saw her so like she stayed when I left. So we left. We went to California. We flew into Oakland and stayed at her mom's parents' house, and then we drove up to Lakeport to see my father, which was like about 3 hours north of the bay, and I watched her go like, fuck it. I love you. You're my dad and I fucking love you. And like, you're a shit dad, but I love you. I'm not, it was what was crazy to me. What I took from it was very empowering for her to go, I'm not going to dictate I'm not going to let what you did to me dictate how I feel about you. Damn. I want to love my dad. And so we left, we drove back. We actually drove down to Los Angeles from Northern California in the back of a 2-seat truck, which is fucking brutal. I was like 14 and I was like, this sucks. Me, her, and her boyfriend Ross. And we drove down and she went back to work, and everyone at her work was like, hey, we piled in our times off. We're going to fly you back up to San Francisco. And my dad was at the VA in San Francisco. My sister was at his bedside when he died. She was there the whole time for like the last 2 weeks of his life. Spent, you go, and one of the coolest things I've ever seen in my life was watching her forgive him. And he didn't deserve it. He didn't deserve it at all. But watching her forgive him, I was like, damn, that's fucking powerful.
Yes, I wonder if there's levels of forgiveness. Like that forgiveness was for her.
It was 100% for her.
It's just for her.
100% for her. And I really appreciated watching that.
Yeah, I'm pinpointing to like how you said earlier about you realizing what love is with she's fiance currently, right?
Yeah.
How you realized that, trying to break a paradigm of what you thought love was based on your experiences.
I thought love was you had to do things for people in order for them to love you.
Right.
I thought it was transactional. And I didn't realize it was unconditional.
And then that mindset is different, but similar to how now you're losing the three people that you love, and then you start, as expected, thinking that, oh, this is what happens. I love people, and then they die. And then and so is that?
I mean, dude, that was my brain. That was my theory. I mean, fucking, still, unfortunately, still to this day, a little bit. You're just kind of like, because when you lose someone young, it's such a traumatic moment that you're kind of like, these things are like set in stone.
Yeah, I think about it. I mean, I always thought about that, because then as soon as that happened, then I'm thinking, oh shit, now I understand. Oh, my mom can just die. My sisters can just die. My friends can just die.
When you see it happen, you go like, oh, fuck.
But what happens to you? That's the thing. It's like fucking. It's always, and people are talking shit about them abandoning you. It's like they don't know what's going on. They don't know what's going on.
Yeah, it's just a different. You're dealing with a lot, and no one knows what anyone's going through in this life.
No, not at all. Until you tell me. Now I'm getting a snippet of you, but I still don't know what you feel. I don't know what you feel.
And like, you could be at work and you're like, why is this guy being a dick? And you have no fucking clue.
Dude, I think about that in every moment of my life. I hold the door open for people. If I don't get I'm like, I just want a nod. Give me a nod.
Yeah, but then you're like, you don't know where their brain is. Their kid could have cancer.
Yeah, they could just have found fucking herpes on their thigh just 5 seconds ago from the doctor's office. I have no idea. And it's like that mentality. That goes a long way, and we can easily just get triggered. And whenever I feel triggers, I just realize, oh, the triggers are just something I got to work out. That's like on me, and same vice versa. And it's like,
I started using this term from The Shining. When Danny Torrance would be in the Overlook and he would see ghosts, he would go false faces, and then they would disappear. And now I'm realizing I'm still working out so much of this anger with my father that I'm getting mad at people, and then I have to go like, false face. It's a false face.
That's
it's just like, that's not real. That I'm literally angry at my father, and I'm taking it out on this guy who cut me off in traffic. Yeah. It's a false face. And so I've just been saying that, which if you've been around me recently, I apologize if that's scaring you, but I'll just go like, false faces.
It's like Seinfeld and Serenity now. It's just like it's just your
release
release
thing
word.
Where you go like, yeah, I don't think this person is because Katie, my fiance, she would say stuff where she'd be like, I don't think they're thinking about this like you're thinking about it. And you're like, oh, fuck. Yeah, you're right. And you're like,
We think our little world, it's all revolving around the way we're thinking, and very rarely it is.
And I just wanted people to acknowledge my pain when I was younger. I just wanted people to be like, because I, and this is for people that have lost people, you'll know this feeling. You really want a part of you that wants to be like, I'm fine. Like when you get hurt, or when you like fall off a bike, or you take a spill and you get up and you're like, I'm fine.
Especially
I'm fine.
in front of people.
In front of people. That's what losing someone is like. You're like, I'm fine. I'm fine. And you're like, your knee's bleeding. Yeah. And you're like, I'm fine. But what you need to do is, you should do the Peter Griffin of like,
you had a long hold.
But you don't. You go like, fine, I'm fine. And I mean, I grew up with a very tough mom. So I grew up with like around her, I was like, I'm fine, I'm good. I'm fucking good. And then I would just be getting fucked up. I would just be out in the garage getting fucking tossed.
I think it's a blend of both. I mean, there's obviously certain moments you just got to be like, you got to keep going, obviously. But then when it comes down to you talking to yourself or someone you trust, it's like, no, I'm a mess. I'm fucked up right now.
Yeah.
And to know that's okay.
Yeah. It was like, because I tried it with girlfriends in the past. We like try to talk about it, and they're like, "Oh fuck," like they're almost going like, "Oh Jesus," where you go like, there's a whole basement I got to clean up, and they go like, "Oh my God, what the fuck did you go through?" And you're like, "Is this too much? Is this too much?" And you shut the door, and you're like, "It doesn't exist. I'll just flip out in traffic. I'll just flip out in traffic."
It's fine.
And then you're like, "Ah," and like. Katie was the first person where she's like, well, this basement's flooded. Let's get the water out of it. And you go.
She sounds like a gem.
And you're like, oh, shit. Yeah, let's get the water out of it.
And it all comes down to just faith. So fast forward to when I earlier said that, when I said how I used to watch the footage, that's what I learned accidentally was just, to me, this is what works for me, even just whatever, if there's something death, whatever shit happens in life, it's going to happen in life. It was exposure therapy, which apparently is a term.
Yeah.
I used to watch the footage, maybe to a point where it could have been close to it being a problem.
Sure.
Of course. I towed that line, I think. But it put me in the place of the pain, which was the footage and seeing my dad die,
it's also that moment.
And the actual moment, which is wild.
This is the day you found out your father died.
And it's just on tape for anyone to Google. And
I don't know, and this is a question I have for you is, whenever you would watch that footage, would you think about like September 10th? Would you think about like
Both.
September 9th?
Yes.
Where you'd be like, 2 days before this, we were wrestling in the living room.
Yeah, we went to a Yankee game a couple days before. It was like the greatest. It was such a
What
great
a
memory.
team too.
Yeah. Tino Martinez hit a home run that day. I remember that shit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But you know what? I feel that way when like I'm doing Palace of the Fine Arts in San Francisco this weekend, and whenever I touch down in San Francisco at SFO and I drive into the city, you have to drive by Candlestick Point, which to me, the highway sign's still up on the 101 of Candlestick Park, and I go like, oh man, you know how many times we pulled off this, like in my dad's yellow bug, just like go into a 49er game and being like,
eerie.
You just go like, those moments become almost in a way like sweeter.
Yes.
You go like, oh fuck, like I remember when it was okay.
And
when I was whole.
And I had no idea what was going to come.
Also, I didn't realize at the time I was already going through something.
Yeah. Well,
I was already like,
what do you mean?
when I would go to San Francisco and stay with my dad, I would be like a mess when I would leave. I would be a fucking mess.
Because you were sad leaving him?
Yeah, I didn't want to leave him because I already kind of knew he was abandoning me.
That's the crazy part,
So
too.
you didn't even like realize it.
Yeah, look, and that's all part of this weird little process of going back and forth. And then honestly, I never have any answers. It's just kind of like, as weird as it sounds, I just throw my hands like, I don't know. I think it just comes back to everything I'm pulling from your story is incredible just because it's that acknowledgement, it's that accountability, it's that being aware where some things came from and still working it out, accepting it, saying it fucking sucks. But I mean, you've gone through some shit that I wonder, and I don't wonder, it just seems like it's so much unraveling now, 30 years later, 20 whatever years later, that it's still coming out.
Oh, I don't think it'll ever be clean.
No, I don't think nothing's.
I think it's just like it's like a life wound that you just got to keep cleaning it out.
Yeah, it's just to me, it's a scar. Like I got this gnarly scar on my hand. It doesn't really. It's my hand's mostly the same, never really quite the same. And then every now and then I forget about it, and then I see the scar. But it's there,
yeah,
and it's never going to be perfect again. But it's like it still prepares you.
I think for me, especially being a comedian, what's really helped is mocking it, and making fun of it.
Oh, I love
and
that.
being like funny about it. And what was really rewarding after that HBO special was like having so many people be like, even when I posted that joke on Instagram, they're like, dude, my dad died, and I have to joke around about it. And it's like, it'd be interesting if we keep this in the podcast, but my dad's half brother, who was around when he died and stuff, he was a shitty family member. And I just was like, as I got older, I was kind of like, well, I reserve the right to choose my family now. And he wrote me a Facebook message, and I was just kind of like, dude, you're not in my life. What are you talking about? You don't know me. And then he got upset and wrote back like, you mock your father's death for money or whatever. And that was like me being like, oh, you can go fuck yourself.
False face.
Yeah, false face. You're a false family, dude. False family. And it just really helped me take ownership of it and be like, no, I'm glad I joke around about it.
Good.
That's my defense mechanism.
Good.
It's the reason.
Sometimes it's not a defense, though. You see it as complete defensive as opposed to just what humor does, which is just fucking, it releases it. It releases it.
Yeah, and there was like, I liked joking about it.
Yeah, I get it.
I like, even like when, like I'll do roasts and people will make roast jokes about my sister and they're like, aren't you mad? You're like, no,
Yeah.
I think it's funny.
I'm down with 9/11 jokes. I don't give a shit.
Yeah. Like I'll laugh at like, I've had good friends do roast jokes where they're like, Dan's sister fucking died in a wreck. And you're like, yeah. I mean, she did. What am I going to go like, no. And you just go like, you got to mature enough to go like, ugh. And sometimes you go like this, okay. All right. That one fucking stung, but good joke. Great joke, but fuck. That one fucking hurt.
That's why, I love, I want to be respectful for your time, but I love talking to specifically comedians because, again, I've had a dark sense to I'm not a comedian by any means, but that humor to me, I used to think it was a defense mechanism. Maybe it was for a while.
I think it is. I think it starts as that.
It at least starts as that for sure. But now it's, to me, humor is, as cliched as it is, it literally is the best medicine for a reason. It deflates it, it acknowledges it, and it gives you a momentary release.
You can also find angles that are so ridiculous that you go like, I never thought about it like that. And then what's funny is when you joke around about it too much, people make fun of you where they go, what are you going to make fun of your dead dad? And you go, yeah. I'm going to make fun of him the rest of my life because I fucking have to. Because if I don't, I'll crawl back into a bottle and I'll be exactly what I was doing, which is just abusing myself, feeling like I deserved it, feeling like all that pain that I experienced was my fault and that I needed, that it was the world showing me I ain't shit versus taking ownership of it, understanding that it's a seasoning of life.
That's what it is.
You know what I mean? It's just like, it's in the dish, dude. It sucks. Sometimes life is easy to swallow and sometimes it's very difficult to swallow, but it's all the same. It's all part of the same wave.
We're all swallowing.
Dude, everyone's just a cum guzzling slut.
There it is.
But it is like, I've read a lot of Alan Carr. It helped me quit drinking. But then there's a Alan Watts.
Oh, yeah.
And, Alan Watts, and thanks to my friend Greg, I read that book, The Taboo of Knowing Yourself. The book, it's called something like The Book of the Taboo.
I haven't read it, but I know what you're talking about.
But in the book, Alan Watts explains that like life it's not just like all good or all bad. It's a wave. So there's like crests and then there's valleys and there's crests. And he's like, the crests don't exist without the valleys.
100%.
And I would tell you right now, because I've lost people that I've loved, I think I love harder now. I think I like appreciate people. I appreciate my cousin Lisa so much. She'll send me texts that are just like, I love you, cousin. And I'm like, I love you too. I really love you. And that's my Aunt Karen's daughter, who my Aunt Karen, the way my dad was shitty to me, my aunt was shitty to her daughters.
And you guys are coming out from it.
And you go like, well, we don't do that anymore. There's like a new Soder family, and we don't do that.
Isn't it interesting? It can. I've noticed, not with you in particular, in general, it can go too far the other way based on that fear of losing someone. Then you become a fucking attached. Then there's like, oh my god, but now it's that balance that he's talking about. Now I can go too far that way.
Yeah,
I have to come in from here. So it's like, what the? It's just
a lot of people don't understand that you can overcorrect.
You can overcorrect,
and you overcorrect, and then all of a sudden you're like.
But it's okay. It's like you said. It's the pendulum. It's the crest. It's the peaks.
Yeah.
That's part of what we're doing. We're not going to perfect it.
Yeah.
But it's a seesaw that we're just trying to figure this shit out.
And once you can level off a little bit,
it's nice.
I mean, I'll tell you what. It's given me perspective. I think it's made me a better man. Like in general, I think it's made me much more empathetic towards people, much more understanding towards people, and it's also really helped me stand up for what I want. What I want out of this life, not living for someone else's life. I think a lot of people that have issues would rather fall into the shadow of someone else and just go along with what they're doing instead of going like, I'm going to pick myself up. I'm going to do what's right. I'm going to be a good friend. I'm going to be a good family member. My mom and I have a fantastic relationship now.
Love that.
We just have a very, and it took therapy, and it took my therapist being like, you have to talk to her. We had a very difficult conversation one time when this may be like 10 years ago. Well, what that did is it opened it up to where we were on a level of respect that let me open my life up to find someone like Katie, who now is part of our family, and it's just like I'm part of her family. That was like a really big thing with me when I was really going through it. And I mean, clear up till like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, before I met Katie, I would date people and feel weird being a part of their family. I'd be like, this feels weird.
What about it?
Like they would have a good family and I'd be like, oh, this is weird.
Like I don't belong here.
I don't belong here. This is going to get taken from me. Something's going to, this isn't good. And then working on myself and understanding what this trauma does to me has made me now, I appreciate Katie's family. I love being a part of it. I love my family. I love who I pick and choose in my family. I love who I let in and who I don't let in. And it's just nice. It's just like, it's like finally getting a new door on your house. And you're like, I can lock it. No one can come in, or I can open it.
There's a deadbolt here?
Yeah, but I can open it. As opposed to when I was a kid, it was just like a car drove through my front of my house, and I was like, well, the wind comes in, and that's a problem.
That car loves me.
Yeah, and it just becomes like, I think death is a very difficult thing, but it's the only thing we all go through.
It is the one thing we all go through, and it's a fucked up teacher, but it's a teacher.
Oh, absolutely.
But it can go either way. And I know, obviously, I've known who you are, and I followed you, but this is the first time I'm going to talking, understanding a lot more. It's impressive to see the way you've been able to see everything.
Yeah.
And just admit what this is and what that is. And it's been a trajectory that seems pretty fucking awesome.
I feel like if a lot more guys dealt with their daddy issues, I think this world would be in a much better place.
Dude, that's what
I think if women dealt with their daddy issues or their mommy issues, you don't realize how much your parents affect you and how much work they set you up to do in order for you to be clean and a good partner to someone else, and to start a new family or to start whatever you do to affect the people in your life as you get older. You gotta fucking go back and deal with issues.
It's all back there.
It's all back there.
It's all back there. Even
that's what therapy, and that is kind of hackneyed thing in therapy, but it is really true. It's like, I bet you can follow. I told this to Big J years ago, where I said going to therapy is just like straightening out all the wires behind your TV. But sometimes what happens is you follow a wire and you go like, that's why I do that. It's the false faces thing. You go, okay.
Yeah, when you think it's just you.
Yeah, and then you go, no, this is connected because A went to B and now B is C. A lot of times in your head you go, A to D doesn't make sense. And you go, the B and C are there.
Isn't that weird? You just find out where it came from as opposed to like...
But it's so relieving to go.
It's so relieving.
Oh, that's what that is. Dude, I used to want my heroes in comedy. I needed them. I mean, dude, I'm telling you right now, dude, David, for fucking years, I would go like, if Bill Burr says I'm funny, if Dave Chappelle says I'm funny, if Louis says if I get SNL, everything will be okay. I will be okay. And then through therapy, you go, oh, that's just my dad. It's just like fragments of my dad. And then once I saw that, I didn't fucking care. I'm like, I love Bill Burr as a comic. I love Louis as a comic. I love Chappelle as a comic. I don't need them to tell me what I am, because it's like, false faces. You're like, oh, okay. That was a completely different thing that I didn't. And then once I mapped it out and saw where it came from, you go, oh. Yeah. Like, you know how many women that have been promiscuous, and they're just like, I don't know. I just don't want a relationship. I just want to fuck other men. And you go, what's going on with your dad? Mm-hmm. And they go like, well, he really, and then they go, oh no. Like, trust me, I would love if everyone that is in sex work or in porn and stuff is just sexually liberated and they just I just love to take on a new lover. It's like, what's real? Like, follow that rope.
Mm-hmm. And it goes for men too, as we're talking about. Same thing.
And yeah, guys are like, I'll just fuck women, dude. Sorry, no girl can hold me down. And you go, what's up with your mom?
Yeah, what's going on?
She was a drunk slut. And you go, well, there you go. So you're just falling back into a cycle. And just follow the rope. Pick up the rope and follow where it goes. And I guarantee you'll fix something. If you go into your past, you'll fix something in your previous.
And it goes back to just looking at it and exposing yourself to it.
And also being honest.
Yeah. And everyone knows when you're lying to yourself. When you're bullshitting yourself, you know.
Dude, I did not like coming to terms with the fact that my father rejected me. But the fact is, my father rejected me. He went, I have a son in Aurora, Colorado. He's fine. And you're like, he's not fine. He's a very sensitive, emotional boy that needs his father. And and then you do what I used to do when I was a kid is I would look at guys with dads and I'd be like, why don't I get that?
Yeah.
Why don't I have that? And then it turns you into a fucking mean, angry. You're just like, fuck this world,
Resentful.
fuck everybody. And then you go like, because I didn't want to blame my dad. I made him a saint when he died. Mm-hmm. And then you go, this motherfucker, fuck him. My heat isn't with I don't care that you had a dad.
There's nothing to do with you.
Why the fuck should I care that your dad was you had a good dad? That's good for me. That's good for society. That's better for me in society. But young me was like, fuck you. Dude, I used to fucking hate rich kids with their dads. If you were rich and you had your dad, I was like, you fucking pussy. You fucking pussy. Oh, my daddy. And then I'm like, oh, brother.
Then you're false facing yourself.
That's all it is. And then you go, this guy's economic status and his status with his dad has nothing to do with me.
See, getting older is not that bad. We start wisening up a little bit.
I love getting old, dude. I wish I could eat late at night still, which I still kind of do sometimes. But brother, I love having gray temples. I love walking instead of running. Mm-hmm. I probably got to do yoga so I stay pliable, but
stretch it out a little bit.
Yeah, whatever. I want to get a good core. I want to be one of those old guys with a good core. Right now, I'm a sloppy mess, but
sloppy mess.
But I really appreciate. Honestly, I know this might sound completely hypocritical or whatever, but I really appreciate going through all that.
Amen.
Because I think I don't know how you feel about that, but there's like. I love the 49ers now. I used to love them because I'd be like, if I love them hard, my dad will love me. And now I go, nah, man, the Niners were the one thing we shared. So it's special to me. It's just kind of like, I see that red and gold and I'm like, go Niners. Mm-hmm. And I'm not doing it for someone else. I'm doing it for me.
Yeah.
They could win, they could lose. I'm going to love them the same. And you go like, oh, I never had that with my dad. And you go, well, I guess I did. Because this is a part of him. I would have never liked the 49ers or the San Francisco Giants without him. But now I see those logos and I feel something. And I go, I feel my dad. Mm-hmm. I feel my dad, that was our thing. Or comedy. You know, my dad loved comedy. And it was like pretty cool to be like, oh, I get to do this. And I love it. I love it. I love it because I love it myself. But I also love it because it was like a thing we shared. And you're like, it just makes you appreciate going through all that. You're like...
100%. I mean, it goes back to like, this is the ride we're on, but it's made me, like you said specific words that I literally wrote down recently, which it's made me love harder.
Yeah.
My family, my sisters, we were always close, but I see life completely different from it, but it was a process to get there.
Oh man. It's similar to like how runners talk about running highs, where you push through and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, this feels...
Yeah, after you get through it.
Fantastic.
It's getting through the other side of the fire. There's nothing better than when you get through the other side.
I mean, dude, I'm going up to the Bay. There's not a time in my life that I don't land at SFO that I don't remember being 5 years old and running down the jetway to my dad crouched down waiting for me and then like lifting me up. And I just love it. I land and I go, I used to be mad about it. I would land in San Francisco and I'd be like, that motherfucker. And now I land and I go, dude, I remember that. Mm-hmm. I remember fucking coming out here in the summer or the winter and fucking booking it. Being, when you fly by yourself when you're a kid, they make you be the last kid off the plane. Mm-hmm. You're the last person off the plane. And I remember like United Airlines being like, go ahead. You just run like, and he's there and you just fucking, as a little kid, you jump up and it was like, man, and now I appreciate those moments. Even if I'm fucking mad at him for not being there, even if I'm mad at him for giving up on me, it's like, I fucking love it, That's part of growing up, baby. That's where we're at right now. Yeah,
but it doesn't become. The memories aren't as sad. It's a sadness sometimes. But
once there's acceptance,
it's just like you kind of looked at it. It's like, oh yeah, okay, that's cool. Like I had that, and then you hang on to that, and it kind of keeps them alive in a weird way.
Yeah, where you go like
a little sad. Still it gets a little.
I mean, absolutely still gets sad, but there's moments where like I think of Michelle, and I think about like her love of music, and when I really get into an album. I'm like, man, Michelle taught me how to listen to music properly. Because Michelle was like, fuck a single. Everyone's going to have hits. You got to listen to their whole album. Then you'll find songs you love. I remember her saying that specifically. You'll find songs you love that no one else loves as much as you love. And then that song becomes even more special. And you're like, I always think about that when I hear the song 4th of July by Soundgarden. Because I remember listening to that album, Black Hole Sun and Spoon Man and all these, but then like 4th of July, I was like, dude, this song fucking rules. And then you're like, oh, that's my favorite song on the album. That's my favorite song on Super Unknown. And then like, then you find out other people are like, I love that song. And you're like, how fucking great is it? But there's ownership. You're like, so I think of her. I think of her that she taught me how to listen to music like that.
Dog,
like,
she taught you the epitome of forgiveness too.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And that's the weird part is like I've come to accept that we have these ideas about how, you know, people are supposed to be in our lives forever. Father's supposed to do this, yada yada, that all that stuff that supposed to. But then I realized, oh no, there are people that are going to come in and out of our life, whether it's through death or just broken relationships. That I feel like, as woo woo as it sounds like, I think they were just supposed to hit me with that little. We were supposed to share that. That's going to stick with me forever, and that was the purpose of our little passing by shit.
I mean, dude, even real bad ones. I appreciate everyone.
Even bad ones.
I appreciate everyone I've crossed in this world.
Even bad ones.
Just everyone I've been influenced by, and everyone that's like good or bad. You just go like, well, it's an extra seasoning to this dish.
Yeah, and the seasoning that you've gone through, I guarantee it's helped with your stand-up, and it's made you as funny as you are right now.
Yeah, I think it also made me really fucking appreciate it. You know, this business can fuck with you. This business can make you feel like if you're not at the tippy top, then you weren't even worth anything to begin with. And you go, well, my dad taught me at the beginning I wasn't worth anything. You know, like, so I'm fine, baby.
Yeah, your skin's good. Your skin's good.
But you know, I think at the beginning where you were like, I'll prove it to everybody. And then you get far enough and you go, there's no one to fucking prove this to.
No, you just got yourself. You're good. Either way.
Yeah. If you find contentment in yourself.
And Alan Watts even says, like, people, something I'm paraphrasing, something like people take the world too seriously for what the gods made for fun. So sometimes I'm just like, we can't take this, that. It feels real as shit. It's real. It sucks. It's painful. But I'm like, this is all over at some point.
Brother, we are a speck of dust in a light beam.
Of dust.
In a light beam that is a blink.
I know. We were getting frustrated about.
And the aliens or the gods or whatever you want to call them, they're watching down and they're going like, this is a good TV show we made.
Literally.
But it's going to get canceled after a couple seasons.
Yeah, not even a couple.
And then we're like, no. You know, it's like, fuck it, dude, man. This is, I mean, I thank God every day. I thank God every day for exactly the way it went.
100%.
I wouldn't take back one fucking thing.
No, dude, I wouldn't be talking to you if we didn't lose my dad.
I'm talking about all the puking myself because I was too dry. I mean, every moment, every rage I felt in the car, in a traffic jam, everything has been like just to lead me to this. It also makes me appreciate shit a lot. It makes me appreciate a good meal. Just makes me appreciate when I'm having like a moment with Katie where I'll just sit back and be like, this fucking rules. And I tell her that. I'm very vocal about it with her. I go, man, look how fucking good this is.
Love that.
We're just sitting on a couch with our dog on a rainy Saturday with nothing to do. We'll just watch some TV and, you know, grab a blanket and you're just like, this fucking rules.
You know, that's what it does. It's sometimes it slows down the moments for me. To recognize those, because I feel like life is, we're chasing this eternal happiness. It's not going to happen.
No, I mean, go back to Watts, to our guy, Alan Watts, but that's the whole point of the crests and the valleys.
You need it to recognize the other.
If you're not, you know, I think it was Dostoevsky wrote, like, you can never know. Deep. You can never, what's that?
So you're going real intellectual moment right now.
But you know, what's crazy about this is this quote was in my AP English class in high school right after my sister died. And he put this quote up. I forgot my teacher, he didn't like me. He put this quote up on the board that was we were reading Crime and Punishment, and he quoted Dostoevsky and he wrote like, you can never know happiness without you can never know true happiness without knowing true sadness. And that was one of the saddest parts of my life. And it's kind of like when you hear a song and you're like, I was like in class and I was like, yo, Dostoevsky fucking bumps, dude. Fuck yeah. It really was this moment where I was like, yes. I remember specifically out of high school, I learned very few things, but I remember that quote and I remember being like 16 years old and reading that quote and being like, this dead Russian fucking gets it. You know, you're like, Fucking commie. He gets it.
It's commie gets it. I mean, dude, it's
I know he's probably not a communist. People, Russian history are like, actually, he's not Russian. I'm just saying, that quote slapped.
Yeah, we can accept a good quote for wherever it came from.
It hit me.
Well, dude, I appreciate you taking the time to let it out with me a little bit here.
Yeah, dude. I always love fucking a little sad chat.
Yeah, I mean, it
wasn't sad at all. Yeah, I think what it is, and for people that have lost people, you'll understand this. Identifying someone else that's been through a similar loss it's kind of similar to being like at an AA meeting where you're kind of like, oh, you guys have been through this. I don't have to over explain something to you.
Yeah. I mean, at the same time, you might be drinking Captain Morgan. Maybe I'm on vodka. So it's different, but like, there's a camaraderie there.
Yeah.
But again, different experiences, but I feel you because you were 14, I was 12.
Yeah.
I was similar too, where my first death exposure was an animal. And then my grandparents, they're around the same time. So a very first time exposure was a similar shit before the big one, if you will.
I mean, yeah, the big ones. Those big ones are like, God damn, especially when you're a teenager. You're like, fuck, dude. You don't realize how much of a kid you are. Because you're like a teenager. So you're like, I'm a man now. And you're like, even when you're 12.
Yeah, look at my
nephews.
nephews.
Like, I'm a fucking man.
My nephews are the same age. I'm like, they are more aware than I think, but also, oh my God, you know nothing. So I was like, oh, damn, I was your age.
Dude,
my dad died.
Friends of mine have kids that are like 16. And I was like, are you getting fucked up every day? And they're like, no. And they're like, huh. That's when it's making me realize I was like, yeah. Jesus Christ.
This is normal. I'm supposed to be doing this.
There's like, I like this. They seem like little babies. And you're like, dude, when I was 16, I was living like a Vietnam vet. And you're like, fuck, dude, I was just drinking and smoking cigs and weed. I was fucking, God, I could party.
Yeah, but again, you've gone through all that. They put you here. You're good.
Yeah.
And you still working shit up, but so am I. So
Land right here, dude.
Well, shit, man. Dan, I appreciate you. As usual, everyone, I'm going to put links to find him in the bio for to catch him. I don't know when this is going to drop just yet, but whenever it is.
Doesn't matter. DanSoder.com for live dates.
There we go. I'm going to plug that in the show. Dan, I appreciate you. That was amazing. And God bless finding your car wherever you parked it.
God only knows.
You going to say something?
No, I was really thinking. You said it. I was like,
should we leave on that note?
Yeah.
All right, peace.
I hope I find my real car.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Dead Talks. Please do not forget to hit the subscribe button and also the notification bell. That'll give you updates as to when we post a new video, more episodes, and more content in general. We are streaming on all the major podcast platforms, including Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and all that. And also find us on Instagram at Dead Talks Podcast or www.deadtalks.net. Thank you so much.